So, if I were to ask you something on a related note that about the decolonial movement that is catching up, so how are the decolonial movements that were spearheaded, like you said, in Ghana by Kwame Nkrumah, and also in other African states that were spearheaded by leaders like Thomas Sankara? How are these visions of pan-Africanist movements similar to the decolonial line of thought that has now emerged in India?
So the the point of decolonization is the assertion that the people of a colonial territory or a former colonial territory have the right to be a sovereign state and to
Mhm.
define that sovereign state's polity for themselves. Now, that is something that we have not experienced because the West still sees us as a semi colony. China
Mhm.
still sees us as a semi colony. We ourselves, our state institutions treat us like subjects and they're like the colonial masters. Now, that's an issue. Uh, and we've seen it, in pretty much any country that has dealt with the trauma of colonization. The post-colonial era led to this realization that independence is not real until you have full sovereignty and you can make laws, enforce them, restructure your economy, restructure your society to undo the harm that colonialism has done, and do all of these things without the interference of a foreign power, especially of your former colonizer. Now,
Mhm.
even in Africa, there were countries that had bold visions like this. So, like you mentioned, in Ghana there was Nkrumah, in Burkina Faso there was Thomas Sankara. Unfortunately, both of those leaders were deposed because they created changes that the former colonial masters didn't like. So Nkrumah was deposed and then exiled, while Thomas Sankara, a very interesting person. So he was a captain in the army of what was then called Upper Volta or Haute Volta, and he took power in a military coup d'état and renamed the country to Burkina Faso, the land of upright men. So they called him the
Mhm.
upright man, and created grassroots reforms in terms of vaccinations, in terms of women's empowerment, in terms of access to healthcare, education, literacy, by creating bold new institutions that were
Mhm.
rooted in the culture of the people. And that's what's important, that it can't be a top down process, or even if it is a top down process, it has to create the conditions that gives people the tools to make their own destinies, to pull themselves out of poverty, to pull themselves out of the structural dehumanization or the structural demoralization that they experienced during colonial times.
Mhm.
So Sankara is very interesting because he was only in power for 3 or 4 years before he was assassinated, but he achieved reforms that other countries took decades, or in our case, have not even happened so far, because the political willpower was there, and he saw that, he dreamed that dream, and to use his phrase, invented the future. So, a famous quote of his says that you can't keep yourselves locked in a box based on the way things are right now. You can't keep yourselves locked in a cage because the colonizer made it for you. You have
Mhm.
to invent the future. You have to create what you want to see, and then pursue the means to achieve that.
Mhm.
So that's what we can learn from these Pan-Africanist leaders who created their own indigenous ideologies, and you saw it elsewhere as well. So Kenneth Kaunda in Zambia, or Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya. You had Julius Nyerere in Tanzania. So they created, African socialism or Ujamaa, or created a new ideology that was, it wasn't just copy pasting Marxism from the Soviet Union, or liberalism from the French Revolution, or American War of Independence, or Westminster
Mhm.
democracy from London, but inventing, or creating or building upon a rooted system of governance to create a new polity that reflected the values of the people. That's something that we need to learn from them. And even within Asia, our own neighbors have done that as well. Do you see anyone in Sri Lanka or in Bangladesh or Pakistan missing the constitution that they got, in the 40s and 50s? Are they all like, oh, it's so terrible that we got rid of it? No, they've restructured their polities multiple times. Bangladesh
Mm-hmm.
exists because they had a problem with the constitution of Pakistan. And
Mm-hmm.
the creation of Bangladesh, the Mukti Bahini, the revolution they had, the war of independence they had, that is a form of radical decolonization, or in a peaceful manner, Sri Lanka's new constitution. Now, every country defines its goals differently, and I'm not saying that that way is the right way for us, but what we need to acknowledge is that the people are sovereign, not the constitution, not the values of the elite. And even the preamble says, we, the people of India, have resolved to create a sovereign democratic republic. That means, the people come first. The sovereignty comes from people. So they have the right to define what their polity should be. They
Mm-hmm.
have the right to demand a state that reflects their values and to demand institutions that serve them.
Mm-hmm. Surely, surely. And hopefully we'll see these changes coming soon, but we can't really say for sure, can we? Because things are really uncertain right now. And if we take into account the current situation we are witnessing, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So all we can do is hope.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.